Jeremy Clarkson, who you might have heard of, once said that he'd rather have a vasectomy than an MPV. Well, a year ago, I faced the same choice, so here I am behind the wheel of my own Chrysler Grand Voyager LE. Plenty of space for an expanding family, and the wedding tackle still intact. But a year later, was it a sound investment? And how does it compare with one of the newer kids on the block? This, the latest incarnation of the Renault Espace. Faced with the realisation that my two-seater sports car days were on hold whilst the little ankle biters grow up, the tricky issue of selecting an MPV with any sort of street cred had to be addressed. The Voyager won it because it appeared in a Danny DeVito movie, all black with black tinted windows. It actually looked mean. And yes, I can be that much of a sucker. Now, we didn't go for the tinted window option on the basis that the British weather has the same dulling effect, so why pay the £1,000 extra? Meanwhile, at the front, it does have a rather nice sleek look of menace, which tends to give me a bit of self-confidence when I'm driving around in what amounts to a glorified shopping trolley. The Espace, on the other hand, has a milder-mannered version of the Voyager styling at the front, but from the side, well, it looks blockily like the old Renault Espace to my way of thinking. And look at this. Outward opening side doors. Quaint in comparison to the sliding, gliding side doors on both sides of the Voyager. Now, it's a lot easier to get Granny, the shopping and the kids out of this. Now, the Grand Voyager is very long at just over 5 metres, and here's the proof. This is where I backed it into a post just a couple of weeks after taking delivery. It's also wider than the Espace, which it really doesn't need to be, because the space inside both these models is verging on the cavernous. They both seat 7 people, and they both perform their own excellent versions of musical chairs. As for the interior experience, well, they're as different as American apple pie and French camembert. For instance, here in the Espace, the driver's position makes it feel like I'm somewhere in the middle of the vehicle. You almost have to hitch a ride to get to the windscreen. And as a result, the rear view mirror, I think, is too far away, and the field of view is too narrow. But a big plus over the Voyager are these 2 enormous skylights, complete with their own net curtain arrangement. Très chic. Also, French styling calls for a vertically upholstered dash, which I must say gets a bit of getting used to, but because it's made of fabric, things do cling to it a lot better when it's going round corners, and there's acres of space to put things on. And I have to say, down here is the largest glove box I've ever seen in my life. The driver's seat in the Voyager, on the other hand, feels like it's where it should be, at the front of the car, within smearing distance of the windscreen. And it has tremendous visibility, both through the rear view mirror there and these side mirrors, which have a tremendous trick. There's a switch on the steering column here, which makes them shrink, so that you can squeeze through narrower gaps. Meanwhile, the information on the Espace dash is truly futuristic and veritably shouts the details at you in a rather fabulous day-glow orange. But the switches for all the controls are a bit fussy and fiddly, although they are at least easy to get at. Whereas the switches on the Voyager are simpler to operate, their functions are clearer, but they're dotted around all over the place, so that you really have to reach to do things like switch on the rear windscreen wiper or operate the radio. The big plus of the Voyager is that it comes fully loaded as standard. Air conditioning, of course, as it has been in American cars for about 40 years. Cruise control too, which really does help to lighten the load even on our stop-go motorways. Electrically adjustable seats and side mirrors, and of course another American essential, somewhere to put your ice-cold soda can. And look at this, Hollywood-style vanity mirrors, complete with spotlights to really show up those beautiful blemishes. Another good practical feature is that the rear side vents can be operated electrically from up here in the front, and that's missing in the Espace. Also up here, place to put your sunglasses and somewhere for your garage remote control. The diesel Espace also has a computer system which for some bizarre reason doesn't tell you anything apart from the distance you've travelled. At least you can operate it from the stalk over here. In fact, most of the controls are on these stalks, which is extremely handy, or from this nearby Star Trek control comfort pod, which does things like the heating and the air blower direction. Even the radio volume and station selection can be done without your hands leaving the wheel. There's even a remote control for the passenger to use. So what do they actually like to drive? Well, we're not really comparing like with like here. For instance, this is the 5-speed manual 2.2 litre turbo diesel Espace, whilst this is the beefy 3.3 litre V6 petrol-driven 4-speed automatic transmission Voyager. Can you hear that? When it's idling, the Espace does sound like there's a Massey Ferguson tractor somewhere close by, but that soon disappears as you set off. Now this 2.2 litre engine has plenty of poke so that you're not going to be too embarrassed at the traffic lights, and it cruises really comfortably at the top speeds. Now the great thing about MPVs is that the good ones are very relaxing to drive, and this is no exception. And because it has a diesel engine, you're getting reasonable fuel economy too, something like 35 mpg for a combined urban and rural use. Whereas the Voyager V6 is a bit on the thirsty side. Look at this, we're only getting an average economy of 18.8 miles per gallon. Having said that, the engine has plenty of poke, especially from a standing start, and it confuses many a coupe driver from the lights who think there's not going to be a contest. The engine is also extremely quiet all the way through, which means that you can hear the kids screaming in the back all that more clearly. The two cars are similarly priced, not surprisingly, from anything between about £20,000 up to £26,000. It's a lot of money, but they are both a lot of motor in every sense. In terms of value for money, I still prefer the highly spec'd Voyager over the Espace, but perhaps you'd expect me to say that since I've already shelled out the accas for it. And to get my street cred back, I suppose I could always sell it, swap it for a nice old 2-seater MG or something, and take out Jeremy Clarkson's cheaper option.